Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes?
I have a note of appreciation to add. I'm Dr. Marvin Colvin, and I have an office in the building. Back in August, I broke my left elbow, and several of you contributed to a card that was brought to me for wishing my well-being and recovery. I really appreciate that, and it really supported me. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate the way in which you support our community and the things you do for us, and with the allowing us to have the pet blessing. We probably are not ordinary tenants, so we're very grateful to you. Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Reverend Alex Musser, and I am the minister here at Unity of Verde Valley. I'm so grateful to be here, especially to be here on the choir day. It is such a treat. I am not going to be here next weekend, but you will be in the most capable, loving, kind guidance of Reverend Liana Lee. I'm going with my husband to California for my brother-in-law's memorial service. So let us come to a moment of silence. Beloved Spirit, welcome October. Welcome fall. As we prepare for the holidays ahead of us, for the events that bring us together as a spiritual community, with our families, with those in need, I just want to invite all of us to come with empty hearts and empty minds of any thoughts of separation. We are looking into all the ways in which we can release, let go, forgive, and allow in more love, more oneness, more unity, more community, and more grace. And so I know that as we are here today in love, we are that vessel, that pure vessel, each and every single one of us, an individuated vessel of clarity, of love, and of forgiveness. And so I invite us to release before we start anything that doesn't serve us, to listen with open minds and open hearts, and leave here knowing that it is just one more step into becoming that perfect expression of the divine, that point of light that we were created to be. And so it is. Amen. All right. How many of you remember the Jackie Gleason show? So this is something that has stuck with me since probably I was a young teen at the time when I saw that. So Jackie comes home, and Norton ate the last piece of cake. And he was very upset. And he's just really letting him have it. And he says, "I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. Please forgive me." And he just can't let it go. He says, there was just one piece of cake there, and no, you selfishly had to be the one that went and ate it. So finally he says to him, okay. So what would have happened if you would have come home before me and found that piece of cake? And he says, well, I would have left it for you. So he says, well, there you go. It turned out just the way you would have wanted it. Can you please forgive me? Oftentimes, bearing grudges and blaming others is really a reflection on ourselves, because we know he would not have left it for. The next one, please, Jacob. So I wanted to start out with really, what is forgiveness? It's not forgetting, is it? Because sometimes we just cannot forget. But it is remembering without having to relive the wound of what we're remembering did to us. It is not a reunion. I've spoken to my husband about this talk, and it's like, so you forgive the thief, but you don't give him the keys to your house? It's like, hey, it's fine, come on over. We don't have to do that, do we? We have boundaries. We forgive them. We move on. And it is not weakness. It is spiritual strength. I wanted to talk a little bit about the idea of weakness. In the Bible, Jesus tells us that if someone strikes you on the cheek, you must turn the other cheek. And so that doesn't mean that you're just going to be a punching ball, boom, 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 and just keep turning cheek to cheek to cheek. I was listening to Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith on the subject, and what he says is turning the other cheek means turning the energy away from that person and offering a different energy. But while you've turned the other way, I think that you might as well just go on. It doesn't say that you have to stand there and continue this. And so I was reading in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary what Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, tells us about what does it mean to turn the other cheek. It means to have an energy shift, to raise ourselves above that which just happened. And metaphysically speaking, the cheek is our self-dignity, not from an ego standpoint, but it means also that we re-elevate our dignity, but move on. So sometimes, I know that Jesus spoke in parables all the time, and for some reason, certain things he said, the church tends to take literally. And some have thought turning the other cheek means just stand there and keep taking it and forgive and forgive and forgive. That's very masochistic. I cannot imagine that that would have been the intended meaning of that. But nowhere does it say blame that person. Nowhere does it say blame that person. Next, please. So why is forgiveness a spiritual issue? It's not an emotion, but it is a metaphysical transformation. It's releasing energy. It's not an obligation that you have towards someone else. It is an obligation towards yourself. It is about telling the truth, not people-pleasing, not reenacting what happened, but being free from it. Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith says that unforgiveness is the harshest form of self-abuse. And it is also a way in which we continue to invite the kind of misfortune that caused us to feel the way that we did over and over and over again into our consciousness. Because no doubt to all of us, something hurtful happened, and probably more than once. But once you've gotten through that, why would you choose to relive that emotionally today when it's not happening to you today? Or why would you choose today to imagine that happening to you again in the future? And when we imagine what it was like and relive the pain, or we imagine that it will happen to us again, then what vibration are we attracting to ourselves? And we are attracting the vibration that brought that into our lives then and is likely to bring it into our lives again. So if you look at it that way, when he says that it is the most tremendous form of personal self-abuse, you can see why. Because you're choosing to live in that vibrational energy. And by the way, does whoever hurt you or might hurt you in the future even care? Inasmuch as they hurt you or they might hurt you again, they're probably delighted that they have been able to inflict the level of misery that goes way beyond the space and time of their actions. And so why would you want to do that? When we say turn the other cheek, Now, seen in this context, we can see how it means move on, release, and move on. Next, please, Jacob. Charles Fillmore gives us the metaphysical meaning of forgiveness as a process of giving up the false for the true. Erasing sin. Sin is, what is it? It's a mistake. And it's an error, a mistake from the mind and from the body. Whose? Ours. We are often impacted by the mistakes, the errors of others. The error thinking of others can make such an impact on so many. It's the ripple out effect. And yes, we need to be mindful of causes that are dangerous to ourselves and others, but we cannot be focused on the individual. It's important to realize that oftentimes when we don't forgive, we attribute it to an individual that said or did something. But it's not the individual, it's the idea, the essence of the act that we disagree with. And then we project it onto that person forever. And so when it says that we are to forgive 70 times 7, I did a little bit of math. That's 490 times. And so if you forgive twice a month from the time you're born, you've used up the 490 times by the time you're 21. Since most of us in this room are over the age of 21, that doesn't mean that we've completed our forgiveness minimum. And now we can hold people accountable for what they really have got coming to themselves. So if that number, 70 times 7, is an example of infinity, you're not going to sit there and count it. Because who does it free? It frees us. And so sin, again, is not a permanent stain. It is falling short of divine law. And so just because, and I as well as, well, maybe not all of you here, but some of you here might have made a mistake sometime. There is no reason to keep ourselves on that hook forever. Because really, when do people sin? When they don't know the difference. Once the light goes on in consciousness, some of the things that I did in my younger years, I don't want to use the word ashamed of anymore because that's not true, but that I regret. The best news about that is that I would never do that again because I am a changed person. And so for those of us that are stuck in regret and remorse, we're keeping ourselves in the place from whence we've moved on. Because if we feel so badly about it, now what does it mean? We're not that person anymore. So why not celebrate that? Why not celebrate the distance between what we did, that knowing what we know now we wouldn't have done, and being who we are now that we know differently? It is an act of cleansing the mind of error and aligning with spiritual truth. It is a mistake. It's a mistake we've made. It's a mistake somebody else made. I don't mean to minimize mistakes. Some mistakes are fatal. Some mistakes are responsible for genocides. Mistakes are not just, it is deep, deep error thinking. But how long must we continue to give that energy negativity as opposed to sending it light? Because how will things change? So again, we don't talk about forgetting. We don't talk about not changing. We talk about shifting the energy around it and moving forward in a different way, in a way where that erroneous thinking maybe would not find the fertile soil to plant its roots in. Next, please. Charles Fillmore said, "Our first work in any demonstration is to contact God. Therefore, we must forgive all men, all humans, their transgressions." Humans can do everything with the thoughts of their minds, the dominion that is human beings and individuals, mine, yours, everyone's, by divine right, is only over our own thoughts. And that is very difficult sometimes to change. I know. My husband will, but don't tell him. But you know, it is really very difficult. And I've given this example before. You can't go from negative to positive instantly, but you can go from negative to neutral by finding a point of focus that's pleasing, that's healing, something out in nature, a baby, a kitten. Our daughter and grandson have just been adopted by a kitten. You know, there's always something like that. And from that place of neutrality, it's so much easier to shift to the positive. So I do not suggest that we sit in pain and despair, which sometimes happen, and on top of this, beat ourselves up because we can't be positive. It is important to not spiritually bypass our thoughts, our feelings, to nurture those, to nurture our inner self, but with gentleness and love, to move beyond that, to heal. And next, please. So how do we contact God? Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith, who you might have figured out by now is one of my favorites. He says it stands for Hello, Eternal Loving Presence. And he tells the story where he went to some resort, some South Seas resort, where he was swimming out in the ocean, and he got caught by a riptide. And he was very strong swimmer at the time. It was many years ago when he was much younger, but he said he felt that he was losing the battle. And he just thought, this might not work out well. And he said, hello, eternal loving presence. We do not need to say help. We do not need to say, by the way, I'm in a riptide, could you please? You know, because it knows, right? It absolutely knows what's going on, because where is the eternal loving presence? It's here. It's in the riptide with him. And his idea was that it would subside. But instead of it subsiding, a very large wave came and knocked him under, and he thought, oh, this is worse. But he stayed in his space, and he said, hello, eternal loving presence. The long and the short of the story is that as a result of 3 large waves, he got pushed out of that and onto the sand. It would not have been what he might have done or what he would have wished for. But he said that he saw and felt the eternal loving presence there with him. And so when we find ourselves in the situation, all we have to say is, hello, eternal loving presence. And it knows. And it doesn't come from that defenseless place of saying, help. It is reconnecting. And it is a testament of our faith. Next, please. Harmony is our natural state. There are no discords in my being. Being is peace. This is from Myrtle Fillmore. If you are at peace and there is no discord in your state, can you harbor mental clutter? Can you harbor unforgiveness? And the reason we're dealing with this topic here in the month of October is because we know that holidays are coming up. And holidays can be a time of tremendous pressure, not only within families, within our businesses and church communities, parties, get-togethers, but for some of us that maybe are alone. And so when we're alone, we tend to go back and revisit the past, which sometimes might have unwelcome memories, and it rekindles that. So we are here to clear the table for the holiday period of any of these resentments. Myrtle said, in her view, that returning to the state of peace, removing any mental discord, and aligning with divine order is the same as forgiveness. And that is such a healing thought, that no one can harm you. And especially if you got through whatever you got through, then you know you're guided, guarded, and protected. There's no reason to revisit it. Know that, heaven forbid, something like that happens again. It might be 3 really large cataclysmic waves, but hey, it'll get you out of harm's way. So have that faith. Next, please. So what is forgiveness not? It's not forgetting something, spiritually bypassing it, saying, well, that really wasn't that big of a deal. I just made too much out of it. You made out of it what it meant to you then. And so don't belittle yourself and elevate the maligner by saying, oh, I shouldn't have. It hurt you. Maybe now you're stronger. Maybe you've learned something about yourself, but it does not mean that we forget. It is not excusing wrong or saying that it's okay. This is not what we're saying here. And it is not tolerating. It is being able to have boundaries. It does not mean that we accept these things. It doesn't mean that, we put on the skin of an alligator so that, people can poke at us and we won't feel it. We must protect ourselves. When we turn the other cheek, we present a different energy, but we also move away from harm. And so we are the beloved of the beloved. We are children of God. We must tend for our tender heart in the same way in which we would tend the heart of that who is most dearest and closest to us. But it does not mean business as usual. And I took a little bit of time this week. They say that we teach what we need to learn. And so here I am going to a family reunion for a memorial service. And so please pray for me that I remember every word of my sermon. But it is not business as usual. The next one, please. Where did this idea go wrong? Parenting is helping children build healthy boundaries. So we lovingly redirect them. We lovingly show them that there's consequences. Child runs out into a street, you tell them they can't, they keep doing them. You put them in timeout, or you take away a toy, or you take away their tablet, or you create some point of pain so that they get it, because whatever pain you create is not going to be nearly equal to the pain that, if heaven forbid, they got hit by a vehicle. But what happens in some families is, can you please go back? Is that parents, in wanting to make that point, get angry with us. And they might call us names. And they might tell us that we're so much like the parent that they divorced, let alone the fact that they're why we're on this planet to begin with, but I digress. But it creates this whole thing of, there's something really wrong with you. Why can't you get it? And then something bad happens that, from a child's perspective, which is punishment. And so we just feel that we're not loved. We feel that we've done something wrong, and someone that we care for, someone that we depend on for our very livelihood, is sick of us, angry with us. Now we can change Jacob. So then what happens? We endure our punishment, and then we're forgiven. We return to play as usual. That was not a spiritual release. In a healthy environment, that would have been a behavioral reset. But we grow up with the idea that once we're forgiven, or once we forgive, then it's play as usual. And I think that's where the idea comes from, that forgiveness means that you're back in the fold. Everything's okay again. And the idea with which we grew up with, that we are unforgiven for what we did, and then we are forgiven, we project that into our adult relationships. And we think that if we forgive someone, it's like when we were forgiven when we were little, and it's business as usual. But that I want to begin with was an unhealthy example. And we carry that kind of unhealthiness into our adulthood, where we allow people that hurt us, to ask to be forgiven without having any kind of a change, or they say they've changed. You can't ever go back. They can change and we can change, but that's a new relationship. That's not going back. So remember that feeling as, I'm done now. Everything is good. And that is not what forgiveness means. It might be all good in me, for me, but the relationship cannot be the same with someone that has hurt you deeply. Next, please. So in adulthood, it can be peace without reunion. But it cannot be unforgiveness, inner war, discord without reunion. What good does that do? For one, you miss the person. For two, you're continuing to live in a way in which emotionally you might as well be with them, because instead of them, hurting you in ways, you are hurting your own self. So we can heal without returning to the situation, still loving the other person, or the group of people, or the family, or maybe, the management team, wherever you work. You don't have to be there. And in the Edwene Gaines class that we just completed, she gave an example of a woman that was working in a very abusive environment. And she just couldn't bring herself to quit till she was fired in the rudest, most inappropriate way. God in the universe gives us so many opportunities to correct our own path, and if not, it's done for us. So know that we have to lovingly take those paths to protect our own divine tenderness while still loving the other people, wishing them well, knowing that they can change, and praying that whatever happens to them provides a gentle landing and they can become that light that they were created to be. Next, please. All forgiveness is self-forgiveness because you're unbinding yourself from what has caused you harm. If you think about it, his story is that he had a cold, unrelatable father for whom he was never good enough. And so he had to fight against that in order to prove himself. In a way, in hindsight, some of us with stories like that have become greater than we would have become without that impetus, which is another reason to forgive. But who do you not forgive when you are harboring a grudge? Yourself, because it's your judgment that's caused you to continue to be in that. Yeah, but that was just wrong. Yeah, but that shouldn't have happened. Okay. So now what happens? Now you move on. Louise Hay, she was abused as a young child. She suffered from cancer. She was unable to finish high school because of the circumstances and the poverty in her life. I had the privilege of being at a Silomar when she was awarded a doctorate for her works at one of the religious science conventions before we were centers for spiritual living. And out of all of that pain, she is best known for having written a book on healing and how each dis-ease has a mental equivalent. And now what is that mental equivalent? Well, if you change that, does the disease go away? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But does your outlook about it change? Yes, it does. Next, please. Edwene Gaines has forgiveness as the third law of prosperity. Non-forgiveness is something negative. We are a chalice. We are the holy body temple of God as us. This is where our divine spirit lives. Light and dark cannot coexist. If we are harboring something negative, painful, dark, unforgiveness, then we are blocking the flow of good. If you have darkness and lightness, then you might have something, medium lightness, maybe we'll call it, right? And so we're blocking the flow of prosperity and the good in our life. And she, too, had a very difficult life. She was abused as a young girl by family members, and she rewrote her story. And she rewrote her story to say, I am a woman of power, and because when I was powerless as a child, I saw how someone with power can hurt someone that doesn't have that power. I am going to wield my power with love, with compassion, and with understanding. I'm sorry that that happened to me, but this is what I'm taking away. That was a painful lesson, but that is going to make me a better person moving forward. The forgiveness unblocks divine flow. It is not a moral obligation. She calls it spiritual hygiene. I love that. When we forgive, we open the channel of abundance. Abundance, we've discussed, is not just money, but health, relationship, good. The flow of our good is blocked by anything that dams it up by being negative, dark, or heavy. Next, please. We may not belong together at the table, but we still, each and every single one of us, belong somewhere. We belong to the earth. We all belong to spirit. We are spirit. The cycle of life. We're all learning. We're all becoming. Some of us at different speeds than others. And so we have to tenderly allow everyone, whatever speed they can evolve at for themselves. We belong to the truth which says we are all worthy, even now. Even those that have hurt us, they are as worthy as we are. They are making a mistake or they've made a mistake. And the best way that we can help them and help ourselves is to see them in the highest, most divine form as possible and to release. Next, please. To understand forgiveness for yourself, you should ask, what does love look like for me now? What truth wants to be spoken without blame? These are different ways of rephrasing, retelling our story. How can we release resentment and reshape our now? I gave the example of Edwin Gaines, and I gave the example of Louise Hay and Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith. We always speak from the I and the now, not you and then. Then, all we have is now. That's why it's called the present, right? We've all heard that said. It doesn't matter what happened then. It doesn't matter what you or they did. It is about me and now, and the healing that I can bring to myself and to others. And it also gives us a few different ways that we can share this with people. We can say, I've done deep work around what happened, and I've come to a place of forgiveness. We can say, things can't go back to how they were, but I'm choosing peace, and that includes honoring my boundaries. I wish you well. I am walking a new path. Not only are those healing words for the other person, but who is most healed by having the strength to stand in the light and speak those words. So when we welcome in the holidays, the office parties, the family parties, find some of these sentences for yourself that you can speak to others so they know who and whose you are, that you've released, but that it's a different situation and that we're not going to revisit it. Next, please. So this holiday table, this season, we should set it with compassion for the one who hurt you. People that hurt other people are hurting very deeply inside. And at some point, that just can't fit inside them anymore. So they take big gobs of that pain and they throw it at the person closest to them because it's just an easier thing to do. And that's usually the person that they love the most. And they might feel better for the moment. And now you feel hurt and soiled. All right? So remember, they are hurting more than you do, and you can turn the other cheek, but they can't, because wherever they go, there they are. They have that work left to do. We have clarity for the boundary that we now hold. We have the courage to bless what cannot be fixed. We cannot fix anybody. We just bless it. God will deal with it. You know, we were not put here to fix people. You know, I tell he's here, so I get to tell these stories. I sometimes say you did not get a wife so that you can have 4 legs and 4 hands and arms. You do it. That's not mine to do. And so we just have to recognize that, hey, all we've got is ourselves. Our 2 eyes, our 2 ears, our 1 mouth, our own commitment to the wholeness. We can't make other people versions of ourselves, which we seem to think is fixing them, and therefore for their own good. That's not true. That's not true. Next. So as we come to the end of this, I hope that this talk has been as meaningful to you as it has been to me in creating it, because there's a lot of truths in there that really, really apply to each and every single one of us. It applies to our country. It applies to our communities. It applies to so much more than our little microcosms of relationships. Release, let go, and remind yourself that it's behind you. And you can remember what happened, but you do not have to relive the pain. You don't have to sell how much it hurt to someone else until they feel your pain. That's another thing. I want you to feel what I felt. Why? Why? I mean, if it was so horrible, why would you want me to experience that, right? So let us remember that it's just we're all children in a way. Some of us are wiser children, older children, but compared to the millennia, we are children, we are learning, and we're learning how to play nicely with one another, and mostly with ourselves. So if I can invite you to come into prayer with me. Oh, beloved Spirit, thank you for making us aware that you are the golden thread that unites us, binds us, and knits us together. That when we have one finger pointing at someone, the other 4 are pointing back at us. That we are here to look for the good and praise it. That we are here to release and let go. To nurture and love ourselves, knowing how important we each are as that point of divine light. And to not dim that light by allowing any darkness to shield it from its true purpose, which is love, kindness, compassion, and healing. Thank you. Namaste.